husband. We have been together for 15 years. 3 years ago, I persuaded him to take an ancestry test because he didn't know who his family was. He took the test and found his entire family, found his dad and his grandparents, and even found out he had 4 siblings. He also found out that he was kidnapped when he was 4 years old. His entire world changed. His name changed, his birthday changed. He has an entirely new identity that wasn't the identity he was born with. His entire life is such an amazing story of triumphs and heartbreak and trauma and love. And I really want him to tell it. I've told him for 3 years that he should post a YouTube video or do something, not only to help him, but to help other people who may have gone through something similar. But he's nervous because he doesn't think people will care. So if you care, blow this up. Show him that people want to hear his story. Andrew wanted me to tell the beginning part of this story because it kind of started when I met him. I was 17 years old and he was amazing. He told me he didn't have any family and I just couldn't believe that. The first inclination that something was weird was his last name. He told me he was Spanish, but his last name was not Spanish. It never occurred to him that his name had been changed. We were given this box of everything that makes up Andrew, but nothing was in it before he was 4 years old. I searched records, I went online, I did background checks, I couldn't find anything on him. He had never even seen a baby picture of himself. After 2 years of having the box, I find this drawing in the very bottom. On the back of it, it says Gabe's first stick person. This was our first clue that his whole name was changed. So after a few years, he did an ancestry test. And that's when the chaos started.
So the next part of the story is probably one of the most important. It's where we got our ancestry kit, I spit in a jar, and sent it off. So Ancestry responded with a list from the registry of about 400 to 800 cousins, and we just happened to find a first cousin. So the first cousin responded and gave us news that absolutely floored us. She told us the story of a kidnapped cousin and a distraught father. Distraught father was her uncle. Through information exchange, pictures, and everything that we could, we finally found out that I was that lost son. The timeline goes, my cousin got me in contact with my sister and my aunt. My sister and my aunt got me in contact with my grandfather. My grandfather got me in contact with my father. In order, I met my grandfather, my sister, my father, and then my aunt and my cousins.
All of this happened very fast. In a matter of days, his entire world was turned upside down. He had family members calling him and explaining the story of a 4-year-old little boy just being taken from them. They told him his real name and his real birthday. It was very overwhelming. The next few weeks were kind of like a dream. He was so scared and so happy all at the same time. His family was so eager to reunite with him. Thankfully, his aunt and grandfather made everybody slow down. Within the first month, his grandfather came to meet him. A few months after that, his sister. A month later, he finally got to meet his dad. A week later, he got to meet his aunt and his cousin.
So my kidnapper, as some of you had suspected, it was my mother. Just to clarify, my father had full custody legally of me based on my mother's psychological standing. Prior to the final custody hearing, my mother and father met at a fast food restaurant where she took me to the bathroom, snuck me out, and shoved me in a trunk, then fled. My grandparents on my father's side had limited contact with my mother, but hid it from my father because they were scared she would run further. Due to her military status, she had the intelligence and resources to keep me well hidden, including sending packages from a different country. So my mother had given my grandparents a final ultimatum, which she redacted and fled. My family spent years looking for me, but finally hit a wall that they couldn't pass. The next video is going to be the real shocker. I'll discuss the events that led up to my mother losing custody of me.
Big shocker! My mother was never really on the mentally stable side.
I had an older stepsister, but my mother sent her to this sort of halfway house for young girls. According to my family, she had anxiety and possible ADHD, but either way, my mother couldn't handle her. One day my sister couldn't be there anymore, so she escaped with her and a couple other friends, ended up in a hotel room where she had a panic attack, took too much medication, and incidentally overdosed. Her friends left her there to expire. She was found shortly after, unresponsive, and that's kind of what sent my mom off the deep end. Sometime after the incident, my mother decided to go and exact her revenge on one of the girls she was with, and the poor girl was probably about 16 years old. According to the story, the police managed to get her before she did anything to this poor girl. She was found with a rope, gasoline, and some sort of edged weapon in the car with her. This is about the time that the custody battle and divorce began.
Hey everybody, sorry about this morning. We had a really hectic night last night. Let's talk about how to change your identity.
We have deduced this scenario from the information provided.
Everything provided occurred while we were on the run. Step 1, hit a women's shelter. Step 2, lie, lie, lie. Get everyone else to lie, lie. Step 3, steal someone else's identity, or pick one from a hat. As with witness protection, you'll be given both a new birth certificate and social security card. Disclaimer everybody, the easiest way to stay hidden is to make your birth certificate and social security card as convoluted as possible. Mine is from New York. We have no idea what hospitals, so we would have to search through every single district in New York, which is $500 a piece. Not gonna happen.
We would like to thank everybody for their support and everything they have provided us, all the love and caring. Please keep the comments coming. We will try and answer anything that we can. I love you.
Oh, you're back. Well, welcome. Now imagine you're 4 years old and on the run.
My mom and I found our way to Colorado, where we ended up staying with the family for a small amount of time.
After my mom lost her job for the umpteenth time, we ended up being homeless. To alleviate some of the fear of being on the run, my mother decided to take us south and we headed towards Texas. Our time in Texas was paltry as we headed east towards Georgia. While in Georgia, my mother found a church program that allowed patrons to take in homeless families. My mother and I found refuge with a wonderful older couple, a relationship that she destroyed just a few years later. My mother and I moved out of state yet again by the time I was in second grade. It's from this point forward that the real horror... First of all, let me thank you so much for the support. Everything has really brought this project to where it is now. What we're going to do now is a frequently asked questions. We've gotten a lot of questions, and if there's any more, please put them in the comment and like and share as much as you can.
Who kidnapped you?
Biological mother for $500.
How did she react? Is she still alive?
We don't know, and we haven't actually gotten in contact with her.
Why have you not talked to her?
There's a lot of involvement, so we're going to make a video all on Some.
Tell us about your birth certificate.
We have the original one for Gabe, but we do not have the one for Andrew, as the situation is super convoluted.
Why haven't you changed your name?
Well, we haven't had the money to do the legal fees, and in all honesty, I'm having a big issue with deciding how to go with the name.
What name are you going to go with?
Fake name Andrew, followed by original name Gabriel, and then family name. Wata!
Why don't we see your wife?
It's a running joke, you get the hair!
Why aren't you pressing charges?
Too much effort, thank y'all! Up until I met my wife, I had never really known what it was to love someone. As most of you know, we met at our local mall where I said something about her slippers and she gave me the ugly look. We were both in our final year of high school, so we didn't really think much about it. We spent the next few months playing around, just really enjoying each other's company, and that all ended the day my mom decided it was time for me to go to college. I love education, and I really wanted to go to school, but the way I was forced was I had to break up with Alexis. After that, no relationship really felt the same. The following spring, I attended a dance about half a state away when Alexis called me with an emergency. What was supposed to be an hour to an hour and a half trip turned into 30 minutes as I rushed down. She told me I saved her life that night, and that really was the turning point in our relationship. After that, our love just continued to grow. Door kick! Flying jump! Sink landing for the algorithm. Best thing about a narcissistic mother? When she kicks you out right before Christmas. December 2016, Alexis and I moved in together and spent 2 years with my mother trying to stalk us. On a routine drive home from work, my mother and I were on a phone call when it dropped. She didn't speak to us for 3 years. Those are the best 3 years of our life. Then, while Alexis and I were trying to plan our life, marriage, children, she rammed her way back in. Not like she completely missed my college graduation or every other big event in my life. But she came back with a vengeance to control everything in our life. But that's okay, because we had a life plan, and we were keeping her at bay. Is that smudged? It was at that point that Alexis and I decided to get married, which, yet again, sent her off the deep end. Door body slam! You asked for it! You wanted it!
You begged for it! Here she is, Alexis, the fence lady Wilson!
Me and Andrew decided to get married. His mother was thrilled about it. She was supposed to do the rehearsal dinner, but then decided last minute that she wasn't and didn't contact us, so we got stuck doing it all by ourselves. But we got married. She came to the wedding. She left within 10 minutes. It was all good. 3 months later, we found out we were pregnant. That was the beginning to the end. I had a pretty uneventful pregnancy, but the entire time his mother tried to just take control. At one point, I told Andrew that I was scared of her to be at a flight risk. My entire family thought that I was completely overreacting and that it really wasn't that bad. At the end of my pregnancy, she insisted on being in the room for my son to be born.
I said no!
So Aries was born. He was a happy, healthy little boy, and we decided to let Andrew's mother have supervised visits, but that went bad real quick.
Because we started seeing issues with Aries, we decided to ask my mother about my family history during one of these visits.
To try to gain access to Aries, Andrew's mother wanted to get an insurance policy for him in her name.
Ugh, seriously? As you can imagine, that conversation didn't go over too well. We weren't super enthused about my mother having any sort of legal access to our son. So, in the process, Aries went back to Alexis, and the conversation got pretty violent on her part. I kept my cool, which amazed everybody. But I'm not very good at this. By the end of the conversation, I had to ask my mother to leave my house. That was the last straw.
Oh, a bathroom kick. Oh, God.
Alright, everybody, so we're nearing the end of our journey. I'm so tired. We've come to a point where my mother has finally been kicked out of our house, but that was not the last we've heard of her.
Just a few years later, the giant flood happened in South Carolina. 1,000-year flood, they called it.
It just so happened that my mother happened to be caught up in the flood itself.
She called us, complaining about the situation, and the first thing, of course, that I asked was, "Are you okay?"
Oh God, that wasn't good enough! I was told that what I should have done was ask her to come live with us. 2 texts and a screaming phone call later, and that was the last we heard of her. Our next video, we have a big surprise. Starting episode 13, The Final Frontier. About a year after we had the test taken, we got a surprise email. The email was from a gentleman who said he was my brother from my mother's side. This newly found older brother was given up for adoption at birth, and he knew about me since I was 15. Not only was he able to validate everything that we had been told so far, he provided us with the only baby pictures I've ever seen. Despite the age difference, he was more than willing to be our brother, and he came down to see us. That brings general resolution to our story, but if you have any questions, please ask. Like, follow, share. We'll never stop making videos!
Q&A about the oldest half-brother.
How is he related to you?
Oldest half-brother, given up for adoption at birth by my mother.
How did he find out about you the first time?
When he reached adulthood, his adopted parents gave him all his birth information. He went looking for my mother, who he couldn't find. Instead, he found his step-grandmother, who gave him a bunch of information, including pictures of me.
Why didn't he look further for y'all?
He didn't really want to intervene.
How did he find out about you the second time?
He took the same ancestry test, and I showed up on his registry.
How did y'all meet?
2 years later, he took us to lunch.
Did he ever contact your mother?
Based on the information he received from the step-grandmother and from us, he decided not to go ahead and do it.
How is y'all's relationship now?
I love you, big guy! If you have any more questions, please let us know.
Grumble, 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 response kick. Oh God! This video is in response to everyone who has a question about my mother. The general question is, are we going to actually do anything about her? No. We are not going to go after her. We are not legally going to impose anything upon her. She is too old, and she's already living with all her own demons. It is unfortunate, but we have literally tried everything to keep her in our lives. That includes inviting her to my college graduation, inviting her to be a part of our son's life, but she just did not have the, stability to be there. The most infuriating part is that no matter what, Along my entire lifetime with her, I have asked over and over again about my family, and she would give me no response, with the exception of, I need to talk to a lawyer. Once she started getting verbally violent, my brother and I knew she had to go.
Hey, Andrew, you gotta wake up. People have questions about your dad.
Do I have to?
Yes. Why did it take so long for your dad to come see you?
So the rest of the family really pushed for him to respect my boundaries and not intercede right away, give me some time.
How is your relationship with your father?
It's a bit strained right now. He has a really big difference of opinion than I do, but we're working on it.
Why has your father not pressed charges against your mother?
The answer is twofold. He respects my wife and I enough to not push her back into our lives, and we haven't given him her name, so it's kind of hard to.
Why was it hard for you to have a relationship with your father in the beginning?
From time immemorial, my mother had given me information regarding my father, that he was abusive and not a very kind person. Neighbor, if you have any more questions, just post.
So when I was kidnapped, a few things happened that made things really difficult for my life right now. So originally, there was Gabe. Say hi, everybody. Gabe was given a birth certificate, but no social security card. Now meet Andrew. We don't understand where Andrew's identity came from, whether it was given to him or taken from someone else. But he has a social security card and a birth certificate. Now, despite having Andrew's social security card, we have Gabe's birth certificate. We do not have Andrew's birth certificate. Now, what we are trying to do is combine Gabe and Andrew into one identity. Without an attorney, it looks something like this. This is the reason we're looking for funds for an attorney and why we set up a PayPal and a GoFundMe.